Oh, I don't know.
Huh?
Hello.
Hello. Trina, are you still there?
Hey, y'all.
Dina? Dawn? Hi.
Hi, folks. Hey, Don.
I saw Trina on Facebook.
Woo.
Trina, if you're there, do you live in Arizona? I can't remember because I look at about 1 million different channels.
Hey, Don.
Or people a day.
And I believe Dean is there. And Trina. If you're still there. The hardworking Brian and Pam.
Well,
today was a long day.
He's been working his butt off.
Actually, yesterday was a longer day. I quit early today.
We have more to talk about. Let's
music.
give them something to talk about.
There's a truck.
Yeah.
Hi. Hey, Dean.
Another truck going by.
We're a couple minutes early. We got a minute left. We'll wait. Let some people roll in, hopefully. Do you and Pam suffer from any allergies? She does.
I do.
Not as bad as it used to be.
When I was young, I have had them my whole life.
I really never have. I mean, if I get a lot of dust and stuff, and I mean, when I got straw flying in my face, I'll be sneezing a little bit, but not really bad.
I do have hay fever, but I have like seasonal allergies, which the wind has been kicking up a lot of junk. So, but I take some Claritin. It's like the equivalent of Claritin, but
allergies were minimal this year. I think I thought a lot of people had it bad this year because of all the rain we got and then a lot of wind. I don't know. I have had them my whole life.
I love.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. Huh?
My whole life.
I guess I've gotten used to it.
He doesn't notice.
I didn't catch it. Let's see. Well, it's 6:01. So
I don't like the bright light, but
well, we'll be in the dark if we don't turn that on. So we're back to work, everybody.
Finally.
Not that we were doing nothing, but we weren't.
Oh my gosh.
Only wind I've seen.
Jared. Jared and
welcome, Jared.
Rob is.
That's Rob, right? Yeah.
Rob.
Hey, Rob. California?
Yeah.
Washington.
Yeah. No, California.
California.
I think it was California.
Sunglasses.
I do have. Oh, hey, Taylor and Melissa.
Hey, Melissa and Taylor.
I do have these, but. But I get called names if I wear my sunglasses.
Okay, Rob is California.
They're so dirty. I need to wash those.
I'm tuned in and excited. There's happenings taking place. Yes, there is. Good lead in, Jared.
Yeah. We got stuff to talk about.
I don't know if everybody got a chance to see the video that it went out this morning, right?
Yeah.
So we finally put a video out again. It was just this morning, so I don't know if people got a chance to see it, but Aircrete House Building. Hey, guys.
Oh, hey. Hey there.
Corey Hart, I wear my sunglasses. Nice. So we did our first section a couple of days ago of bale wall, right? So for us, it's a little different, it's a little different than the way Bill approached it. It's a little different than the way some other people approach it. It's sort of a hybrid of a load bearing and a post and beam kind of thing. Because we have wood from floor to ceiling where our doors and windows are, called bucks. So basically what that means is we're going to build bale walls, basically between those bucks. So instead of us kind of going around the bottom with one course of bales and then going up to the second course of bales all the way around and third course of bales all the way around, we can kind of build walls in sections from bottom to top in between these bucks. So that's what we're doing. So that's kind of the way we're approaching it. So you'll see it go up in kind of sections. You won't see it go up in layers. You'll see it go up in sections around the building. So we did our first section. I chose the first section it was the smallest. It turned out, we found out a little later on that was actually a tough section because it wasn't even a bale wide. So So I had to squeeze a bale in between the two bucks, and I've got, you know, these little extra pieces of wood to kind of run these screws through to hold these vampire stakes and everything. So it was a really tight squeeze, and I wasn't quite prepared for that. So that took a little learning, but that'll actually get easier on the other sections. That's the only section that's just, you know, going to
Narrow.
be a single bale piece. Um,
We
Thanks, Don.
we almost have a second video ready to go. I've got a
Yeah.
bunch more footage that I took today and
So
yesterday.
for those that did see it, you know, everybody likes a little different stuff. Some people like just a little bit of a story or whatever. Some people like when I go in depth. I know it can get a little boring. Even to me, it gets a little boring. But when I teach things, there's a lot of detail. So if you actually wanted to do that task, I think it's helpful to see all the details that I put in there. So what I on that first one, you know, it was kind of a mix of Pam came out and did some filming, and then she went away for a little while, and because I was thinking, so she couldn't just stand there and film the whole time, and it's hard to run a camera on a tripod all the time, especially in the heat. So I just kind of worked alone for a little while, and the wall went up, and she kind of missed a lot of it. So I just kind of filmed it after the fact and talked about it. I just wanted to say that because we'll be doing these sections, we'll get a lot of opportunities over the next couple of videos that we do to kind of see different pieces of that. So, for example, today I tried to videotape a section of me
Trina
basically
says
putting up a
helpful.
whole wall section. So,
Did you talk while you had the tripod out there?
just a little, but the idea behind having the tripod out today I actually did the third section that I've done. So our first section was our little bit of a learning curve, and we'll talk about what we learned at the top, you know, because I talked about in that video what our solution was going to be to our problem. Um, Even if you didn't see today's video, a lot of people that are here have heard me talk about this problem even before the monsoon, basically,
He's been talking about it forever.
when I was anticipating this problem, which did happen, by the way.
I think that's what kind of held you up for a long time, because you
Well,
were worried about it. Like,
a little, but then the weather caught us. But anyway,
I think it's worked out the way it should.
the point of today's filming, so I was going to say this is actually the third section of wall I've done, and the point of today's filming was really to just show the whole thing in sequence, and we'll probably end up kind of speeding it up, right, and just so that you can see all the pieces go together.
Yeah.
But they'll go together fast.
Off-Grid Patriot has joined us. Hello.
I think you explained what you're doing really well.
Off-Grid
Thank you.
Patriot, is your name Mark? Because Brian asked me today if is Off-Grid Patriot named Mark.
I went to respond to one of your comments, I think, and I like to use people's names, but again, we've talked about before. It takes us a while to actually remember each person's name
because there's a lot of different channels that we follow. Did you do the
did you do the foam board? Thank you
No.
for asking. The answer is no. The short answer is no. So you'll see it in the next video, but for our diehard fans who are here, we'll talk about what we came up with. I have to give some credit. Well, credit to a lot of people, really. I mean, Pam got me thinking about some other solutions, potential solutions, and it was really talking to my buddy Craig that broke it open, and I'll tell you why. I'll describe why here. So again,
where's Craig?
If you it's Mark and Michelle. Great, you got it. Okay, she was right.
I was
She said it was Mark.
I said I was 99.9.
Yeah, but I was afraid to use the name in case I was wrong. Anyway, so if you saw the video, great, and you'll know what I'm talking about. If you didn't see the video, but you've been on some of our lives in the past, you might have heard me talk about this. Real quick, I'll try and sum it up. Basically, what's happening is our bales, after we stack up 4 levels of bales, they're actually not 2 feet tall each, which would have given you an 8-foot tall wall. And then as you squeeze it down, it would be a little less than 8 feet tall. The bales are really more like 22 inches tall. So when you stack them up, they end up being about 88 inches or so. And then when you squeeze them down, they end up being shorter than that. Well, the idea behind this whole setup is you stack up the bales, you squeeze them down wherever they squeeze down to. That's where you determine your height of your bucks to be. That's where you decide that this is where my box beam is going to go. This is how tall I want all my walls to be, right? So you go around all your window bucks that you built up as 8 feet to start, just because an 8-foot 2x4 or whatever, right? And you just chop them all off to that level. The problem is my walls were coming up so short that I couldn't chop down that far because I have a header over a French door, a wide door that has a big header on it. The header is taller than that section, so that's basically my walls are too short.
What's a header for anyway?
A header is because in standard framing, when you have studs in a wall,
yes,
when you have a door or a window or whatever, basically you're losing those studs along the way, right? They disappear.
Oh,
so the idea of the header is to add additional support because there's missing studs.
Okay.
Hopefully that makes sense to everybody. That's traditional framing.
Okay.
But I'm treating this sort of traditional-ish. You know, when we built those bucks, they're basically standard framing. They have, if it's a window, it's got a sill and a header and little gosh, there's a name, cripple studs below the window and above the window and stuff like that.
Guy like
take the weight off the door of the window.
Face first.
So anyway,
takes the weight off. Okay.
Basically, the bale walls were coming up short.
Oh,
hey, Malin and
Dad.
The bale walls were coming up short. I anticipated this, and I've been thinking about a solution for this. And the best one we had come up with was foam. And I talked about it in the video. I said, the bales after we stacked them up, they fell, 8, 9, I don't know, somewhere between 9 and 12 inches, even short of the, maybe 8 or 9 inches short of the top of the bucks, at full height, 8 feet, right? So a full 8-foot 2x4, which is what I use to build all the bucks around the thing. But they all have headers at different levels, depending on what it is, a door or a window or how big it is.
Missing studs.
Yeah. So we decided, they were, like I say, they were 8 or 9 inches below the actual top of the 8-foot buck, but they were only the highest header of all the things I had was that French door. And it was at some level, right? And the bales on that first wall that I did, now this wasn't in the video, but that first wall that was just one bale wide or a partial bale wide even, after that video, I actually did squeeze it down. I put a little mini kind of test box beam on top of it. What's funny?
Don said if you and him are in the same room, there's no missing studs.
Good one, Don. So...
Sorry.
I thought you were laughing at me.
I'm not laughing at you. Sorry, I totally lost your train of thought.
No. So I did squeeze that wall down. So the way we're intending to do, but I did it for just the one section. I made a little tiny box beam that fit over just that section of bales. And I put the straps, from the bottom to the top, and I cranked them with the ratchet tool. So they did squeeze down, 2.5, 3 inches, something like that. And that proved to me that, yes, we were short. So, but we were only short by, roughly about 3 inches or so. So I said, okay, I have a problem of about.
Can I say what
sure.
my idea was?
Oh, well, I haven't even described.
Well, you've been going a long time. I have to stop. I have to slow you down, or you'll go on
jumping
for a
ahead.
long time.
So the solution was going to be
next?
some foam to fill in that gap, a gap of about 3 inches. So we were trying to figure out where to buy this foam and stuff, and we knew it was going to cost a little money that we didn't really want to spend and didn't really want to do. And it's not straw, and it's not, we just didn't want to do it, but we couldn't think of anything else. So we're sitting here talking at the table the other day, and you said what?
I said, why can't we use cob bricks?
No, that's not what you said.
I don't know what I said.
You said, why not an earth bag?
Oh,
was the first thing you said, which was actually a decent idea. And it would work. It would work. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. Basically, which Pam was suggesting, even when we were talking about the foam, we had kind of decided, even when we thought foam was going to be our solution, we were going to put it down at the bottom as to be a little bit of a moisture barrier as well. And, just seemed to make sense to put it at the bottom. Fine. Doesn't really matter all that much, but we thought the bottom would be a good location. And as we're talking about that, Pam says, well, why not? So essentially what we're talking about doing is building up the foundation a little bit before the bales begin, so that when they finish, they'll be just a little bit higher, right? So that's fine. And that would have worked. But Pam says, well, what about, she didn't want to spend the money on the foam. I didn't either. And she said, well, what about an earth bag? And I said, that's not a bad idea. I thought about it for a second. I said, that's not a bad idea. We could fill a bag, put it in there, tamp it, get it nice and flat, and then start our bale work right on top of that. Sure. And then I actually called because it was earth bag related, and I was wondering of the sizing, we would have to get it to be kind of the right width, the same width as basically the width of our sill plate, the width of a bale. So I called up Jim from Green Dream Project, and Jim and Jessica were there, and I talked to them for a minute, and they said, yeah, you could probably totally do that, and you could get about that size. But while I was on the phone with Jim, he said, Jess had an idea. He said, what about, he said, why not cob? Either making it into bricks and placing and using them like bricks, building them in a form and putting them there after they're dried out, or doing it right in place. People build walls for their houses out of cob. So building it right in place. And I said, that's not a bad idea either. So that sounded cool. Let me stop for Don. Brian, having worked with the foam board myself, I would be concerned it might smush. That was another thing that was bothering me. If you had it as your base, I think earth bag would be much better.
Yes,
J&J, of course.
I said that too.
It was worrying me too. So even as I was going through this thought process in my mind, and I was about to call a foam company because I wanted to get it. I wanted to get the foam actually in one piece, right? I didn't want to put together a bunch of little pieces that I bought from like a Home Depot or whatever. I wanted to get it the right thickness that I wanted. And even as I was thinking about that, I was like, even though the foam is rigid, and if you say you place a piece of wood on top of that foam and you squeeze it down, it's not going to crumble. But regardless of where you put it in the wall, if we put it at the bottom or even if we put it at the top, when you sandwich that in and you start to squish it, on some, even if it were at the top with less weight on top of it, I'm going to squeeze it, right? I'm going to squeeze the whole wall, and the straw that was below it would be piercing into it. It might not compress the whole thing, but it would kind of stab it, right? So I was worried that it wouldn't really function all that well when I tried to squeeze the wall. So
and then you ended up.
So that's why I was getting nervous about that solution. So
somehow you ended up.
So yeah, I do this all the time when I get different ideas. Even when I have ideas or when other people send me ideas, I bounce them off of other people. So I called up Craig after all this and I said, I just want to bounce something off you. And I was actually gung ho for, either an earth bag or cob. I was like, those are not bad ideas. So I ran it by my buddy Craig, and he changed the way I thought about the problem completely, which was good. And I think he had a reason. I think the reason he went in that direction was kind of different than the reason I ended up there. But when I told him about squeezing the wall down and it getting shorter than my 8-foot bucks and chopping off my 8-foot bucks and basically chopping them off all the way down, I was trying to reach this magical place of this tallest header right over the French door. So I think in Craig's mind, when I told him that, he said, so your wall, at least on one side, because one wall is going to be at that level and the other wall will be higher, of course, so because we've got a slanted roof, right?
Yeah.
So he's like, on that one wall, he said, your wall's only going to be that tall, right? Whatever that is, it's less than 8 feet. And he said, your wall's going to be shorter than 8 feet. Hi, Mom.
Hey, Mom. And
I said, that's fine. I had expected one of the walls to be shorter than 8 feet, but it will slope upwards and it's not a big deal. And that was kind of bothering him. And he said, so what he said after that was what I never had considered. He said, why are you trying, if you're coming up with this, you're trying to come up with some solution to make your wall taller, right? He basically said, why are you only trying to make it a little bit taller just to make it tall enough to get to the top of that one header? He said, why aren't you trying to make it 8 feet tall? And I hadn't really thought about that at all. I was in my head, I was like, so I said, wow, that's a good point. So the reason that's important is because, we were trying to solve this problem of like a 3 or 4 inch gap. Well, you can't do that really with straw, not well, right? You can cut straw bales this way, retie them into 2 bales and break them apart, and you've got 2 shorter bales this way. But you can't really, at least you can't make a bale that's only this tall. You can't wrap one string around it and have it be this tall and have it be in a brick sort of form, right? It won't have any form to it.
He did cut it in half.
So and I think along the way, Pam had kept asking me, why don't you just make a bale that's this tall? And I said, I can't make a bale that's that tall. That doesn't work.
But you did.
So, well, I didn't.
Well,
the reason Craig changed everything was now I wasn't trying to add this much height to my wall. I could add as much height basically to get up to the top of those 8-foot bucks, and actually I can go a little beyond them before I squeeze them down, because I know when I squeeze them down, they're going to squeeze down 3 inches or so. So basically, I can build my wall 3 inches or so above that 8-foot buck. I'd probably just get a wall tent because I'm lazy. Ben Johnson, welcome, Ben.
What's a wall tent?
I'm not sure. Anyway, that changed my whole thought process. So when he changed it from trying to solve a problem of making the wall 3 or 4 inches taller and maybe making it more like a foot taller, then we started talking about taking a bale when it's on its side. If you think about how tall it is, so we turn them on their sides. They're, on paper, I had them drawn at about 24 inches tall. It turns out they're more like 22, which is part of the reason I'm in this situation, right?
Tom.
So,
Hi,
hey, Tom. Got the weather report.
New Jersey.
Good job. So now we talked about, hey, so why don't we try and take a bale now and cut it this way into 2 shorter bales in height? And I said, I couldn't make a bale this big because it just doesn't make sense. But I said, I think I can make a bale that's maybe a foot tall, or basically cut a bale in half, which of that 22 inches, that gets you about 11 and 11. And although I hadn't done it before and I hadn't even seen anyone do it. So, but I thought, but that changed the whole game. So I said, wow, that would allow us to solve this problem with straw. That would be awesome, right? So, and just in theory, I thought about it. I was like, okay, so I'll do 2 ties, 2 new strings at the bottom of the bale below the middle half and 2 strings above the middle half. And at least in theory, if I can cut through that thing, I'll have an 11-inch tall bale with 2 strings around it that should hold its shape, and another 11-inch bale with 2 strings around it that should hold its shape.
And Yvonne?
Don, I'm getting there in a second. Hey, Bill and Yvonne.
Brian,
so Don asked what tool I use. So the first thing I did, because I didn't know anybody that had ever really cut a bale in that direction.
Diagonally? Is that diagonal?
No, that'd be horizontally.
Oh my God. What's diagonal? Is that?
Wow. So I called up our teachers, right? Bill and Athena Steen at the Canelo Project. And I talked to Athena. She's very helpful. She's a super nice lady. She knows a lot of stuff, and she's just pretty easygoing. And, even though we've deviated from their method that they taught us, we're doing a lot of things that they taught us, but we're doing a few things different. Largely our foundation is different, but we're trying to use a lot of what they taught us. But she was really cool. I explained the problem to her, and I said, it's funny. I've never really seen this come up in all the reading that I've done on straw bale and all this stuff. I said, I explained the problem, and before I even got there, she knew where I was going. She could tell that I was going to say that my bales weren't tall enough. And so luckily I already had kind of this idea in my mind. I said, a buddy of mine and I kind of figured out that maybe we can cut a bale in half this way. And basically, instead of 4 bales tall, it'll be 4.5 bales tall. And I think that'll solve my problem. And basically I just said, have you ever cut a bale that way? And does it hold? And will it still work? And she said, yes, we have done that. And that will work. You should be fine. And she said, that's a good solution. So that just gave me a little bit, this just made me feel a little better that somebody who's done a lot of this stuff was okay with that and had done it and thought it was a good idea. So that was kind of the stamp of approval that I needed. So I went forward with that. And today, it was today, this morning, I went to the second section of wall that I had already built up 4 levels and left the little extra at the top kind of undone. I did go out and I tied a bale. It happened to be a full bale because I wanted 2 full bales wide, but only half height. So I basically took 1 bale, I retied it, but I didn't kind of drive a pin into it like you normally would to split it into 2 pieces this way. I just went the whole way around it, and I basically put 4 strings around it, or 4 straps, 2 low and 2 high, so that I could then cut through the middle. And then I took a couple of pieces of wood just to make sort of a little jig. And I I put one on the back and one on the front, and I clamped them together at the front and the back, basically just to squeeze against the bale. And what it did was it gave me basically a line that I could take a chainsaw. That's the answer to Dawn's question. I used a chainsaw, although our chainsaw is pretty weak. So it took a little while and it wasn't real pretty, but I did get through it. So I ran that chainsaw along the line of that wood that I had kind of clamped in place as my line. And I just ran it across, and it took a little time, but I got through it, and the bales came out pretty decent. You have to be a little careful with them because they're only about 11 inches tall. If you're not careful with them, they'll kind of bend and it would probably just kind of fall apart at some point. So you have to tie them pretty tight and be a little careful with them.
When you put them on the top of
Of course, I
the
had to climb the
wall,
ladder with them and
it
get up
was
on top
very
and maneuver them around and everything. So it was a little
it
scary.
was scary.
She was scared that I was going to fall off the ladder. I was scared that the bale was going to fall apart. And what I did to just help the fit a little bit, let's say, if you've been following what we've been doing, and this is also very similar, if not the same, to what Bill did, we're driving rebar spikes essentially between the bales to kind of give us a little stability from bale to bale as we go up. So we've been doing those rebar spikes. Basically, I left my top layer of rebar spike. Need to make a wood platform for some, yeah. I left my top spike after I did 4 layers of bales. The last rebar spike that I drove through, I left it sticking out like a foot. So that when I brought that extra half bale up there, I could basically just put it down on top of that spike and hold it in place. So Bill says, I just had an idea. What if you took the bags like Tiny Shiny Home are using and filled them with loose straw? Wouldn't that work too? Maybe.
Ooh,
I think I was talking to Jim and Jessica. I was talking to Jim on the phone if you followed that story, when I was talking to Jim in that process, when I called up Jim and said, hey, what about an earth bag? And we were talking on the phone, and he said, what are you going to fill it with? He said, are you going to fill it with gravel, or are you going to fill it with dirt? And then eventually he said, what about cob? But during that conversation, I actually said, what if I filled a bag with straw? And I guess in theory that would work, but I think the hard part would be to fill a bag, any bag, tight enough that it really would have some rigidity to it, that it would function like a brick in a sense. That to me, at least in my mind, I haven't tried to do it, of course, but that's the part, even when I mentioned it, as soon as I said it to Jim, I said, boy, I don't know how I would fill that bag tight enough. I mean, you just have to keep smashing and smashing and smashing straw in there until you got it really tight. In theory, I suppose it's possible. And like I said, I even mentioned it to Jim. I said, what if I filled a bag with straw? But I think you'd have a hard time of getting that bag to really be so full that it wouldn't just collapse, at least squish a lot, right? So you maybe would have to make it way bigger than you really wanted it. And then when you put something on top of it, it would smash. In theory, I think that could work, Bill. And like I said, I suggested it to Jim, but I quickly kind of went past. I think it would be really tough to pull off, but I don't know. But this half bale idea,
it's not supposed to rain anytime soon.
With
hopefully.
The rain too.
Why does it have
to be so tight? Air is good insulation.
I think he's talking about tall.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Why
and the
couldn't you
tops
stack
of all
them
your
up?
bucks will be holding the box beam.
If you need it taller, why couldn't you just stack up 2 of them?
I guess the reason I said so tight is because for it to actually give you to fill the space. So, for example, if I wanted a bag, let's say a straw bag, to give me 4 inches, right? Let's say, I think I'd have to make that bag much bigger than that, so that either if it was on the bottom and there was weight sitting on top of it, or even if it's at the top. Remember, even though it's at the top and there's not weight on top of it, remember, I'm squeezing this whole thing. So in a sense, everything in there is getting pressure, right? Regardless of whether it's at the top or the bottom. I think I'd have to make that bag much bigger than 4 inches tall to get 4 inches out of it once it's smashed. And I understand your point about air is good insulation. It doesn't have to be that tight, but it will be tight when the wall structure gets compressed, right?
But I think that solution,
unless I'm misunderstanding something,
the solution that you came up with actually is going to be good.
Yeah, but you're only squeezing it as tall as much as your box beams will allow. Correct. But one of the things I want to be careful of. So again, this is a little different than what you did, Bill, and it kind of is that hybrid method that the Canelo guys teach, where I try to explain it this way, and I think I'm explaining it right. I've done this with Pam a few times. The way I explain this method that we're using is, a traditionally framed house. You have a bunch of studs in a wall, and they support the weight. Studs and a header support the weight of the roof assembly. In a purely load-bearing straw bale house, the straw bale supports the weight of the roof completely. in theory. What we're doing is a little bit of both. So yes, we have these floor to ceiling bucks that will be supporting the weight of the roof assembly, but so will the bales, right? The idea is that that load is shared between those two. And here's what I'm afraid of, and maybe I'm overthinking this, as I tend to do, but what I'm afraid of is if I just kind of cheat and basically stop my compression wherever the bucks are, if I stop where the bucks are, but I haven't truly compressed the bales as much as they could be compressed, I feel like I'll be cheating, and I feel like I'll be putting more stress on the bucks, on the couple of 2x4s for those bucks, than I would be if the bales were, yeah. Well, yes, you're right. It will only go, but I want to anticipate that by the time I get to the bucks and the box beam stops at the bucks, I want the bales to be as compressed as they can be at that point. So I want to make that match up. You know what I mean? So I don't just, let's say I built a bale wall that was 2 inches taller than my buck, right? And I put a box beam on top and I squeeze down the buck. I squeeze the whole thing down 2 inches and it hits the buck. The box beam hits the buck. So in theory, right, but the box beam is sitting on the buck and it's sitting on the bales. But I've only compressed the bales 2 inches. Let's say they would have compressed 4 inches. My point is, I won't really be sharing the weight between the wood of the bucks. I'm sorry if I'm losing anybody here, but
I'm with you.
The bales won't really be supporting as much weight as they should be.
We've already
and
used
therefore
that joke, Jim.
That means that the bucks would be supporting more weight than I want them to. And again, because it's not stud framing every 16 inches, whatever, those couple of bucks that I have at a window and a door and a whatever, they're not really, I don't think that's enough wood to support the whole roof assembly. I think it has to be shared with the bales. And if the bales haven't really been compressed to their at least close to maximum compression as far as I can get it, they won't really be supporting as much as they could be. I hope that makes sense. And at least that's the way I think of it in my mind. I get everything you're saying, Bill, but I want to make sure that when I do hit that buck, that those bales are compressed at least really, really close to as hard as I can get them, so that they're doing the job of supporting as much weight as they could. Because I feel like if I don't compress them as much as they could be compressed, they won't help the bucks as much as they would help, as I want them to help the bucks.
Well, that one wall seems really, really compressed and strong.
Sure,
but
sure.
You haven't.
Sorry, I hit the table.
You haven't taken off you haven't added the top one in that one section.
So hopefully for everybody, hopefully people followed that. Hopefully that wasn't too much of a tangent. I think that's a valid question, Bill. I think you make some valid points, but I'm trying to explain my thought process of why I want to be careful.
It is a challenge.
So yes, it is a challenge to get something strong with natural.
Hey, Lisa, how are you doing?
I just jumped onto YouTube and found you guys live. Nice to see you.
Thanks for coming.
Hello. So anyway, hopefully everybody followed that. If you have any questions about that, let me know. I'm rambling again, of course, but I was trying to.
Did
you follow
that? Ahead.
Did you follow that?
Yes. You've told me about 10 times, so it's finally sinking in a little bit.
Hopefully that puts us all on the same page. Like I said, I think, and those are valid questions and valid points and some valid solutions, Bill, but because of where I ended up, again, when my buddy Craig basically told me that I could rethink the problem and try to get up to the top of the bucks, when I realized that I could do the job by cutting a bale in half, kind of this direction, and I thought that was doable, I thought that was a really good place to be. So I actually was really pleased to get there, because in a perfect world, I wouldn't have to go to a foam solution or an earth bag solution or a cob solution. Not that those wouldn't work, but in a perfect world, I'd be able to do it all with straw. And it looks like we're getting to be able to do it all with straw. So I'm really happy about that.
Yes. And it's going to be a lot less expensive too.
Sure. Not that straw is free, but we have it already. It's not particularly expensive. So I'm happy with the solution so far. like I said, I have done, and you'll see it in the next video, but the next wall section I did after that first one, I did, 4 bales and then a half, so 4.5. I haven't squeezed it down yet because much like Bill's build and most other builds, even though I'm not building around like this, I will wait until all the walls are in place before I put the box beam on top. So you're anticipating about 6 inches. I'm anticipating more like 4, but I threw some numbers out there like a foot or whatever. Don't get too caught up in that. I'm building the walls to be just a couple inches, 2, 3, 4 inches above the bucks, the 8 foot of bucks. And when I squeeze them down, they'll either be right at that 8 foot level, or if they want to go a little further, I may chop a little tiny bit off the top of the bucks. But no, I don't expect to get 6 inches. I expect to get probably 4, I'm guessing.
Thank you, Lisa. I
Oh,
actually took a shower
Pam got
today.
fixed up. Today was shower day for us.
I actually went all day without putting on makeup or anything.
Pam got fixed up today before the show.
Like around 3, I finally decided to do something.
I got a haircut, less than a week ago, I think?
Yeah.
You did my hair.
But I've just been going around like pulling weeds and let's see, I've been lifting weights, going for walks, trying to stay in shape so I can help him eventually. You will need my help eventually.
I will. I'm trying to do a lot of this. Well, one reason I'm doing a lot of this sort of myself is because I'm kind of slow at it, because I'm trying to figure out things as I go. So I wouldn't even be able to ask Pam for help or the things. I think she came out yesterday. You might see this.
I've been filming.
Well, I don't know if it'll be in the video.
I've been doing a lot of filming.
At one point yesterday, she said, I had a bale up really high on a ladder, and she said, can I help you? And I said, not unless you're 8 feet tall. So there just wasn't much she could do, really. So, but I'm working kind of slow. So it's okay that I'm doing it alone for the moment. A couple times it's nice to have an extra set of hands. But I think what's going to work out nicely for us, and hopefully for you, for the fans, right? The viewers. Yeah.
Take your time.
Good point, Bill.
Oh, believe me, he's thought it through.
Hopefully, although I realize we haven't put out a lot of content recently, we're going to be putting out some more content. Hopefully that content is going to be a little more interesting because, and I know it, I've said it a million times, when I just explain a problem or a situation or something I'm going through, the steps I'm going through, it can get a little boring, even to me when I watch it back. And I'm really not a boring person, but I go into this different kind of mode, right? So what I think Pam can do best for the two of us right now is come out and kind of catch me real time, and we can have an interaction where she can ask me some questions. Why are you doing that?
Yes, I did.
Funny things tend to happen when Pam's running a camera. So.
I cut his hair.
She says funny things. She does funny things.
I don't know if you guys watched that video today, but there's a part where I thought I was going through the door, and I hit the door or the
that will
window.
Also be in the next video. Stay tuned for something Pam does.
Oh, that's in the next video.
Yeah, I didn't know if you'd put it in any of your videos, but
I haven't.
But it will be in our next video. Pam did something pretty funny, so keep your eyes open. And I will highlight it, and we'll make sure to edit the video in such a way that it'll be highlighted, I think. But it was pretty funny.
It didn't.
Ben, I wish I had a Flowbee, by the way. I wish I could.
Awesome. Gotta go.
Oh, Dean said good night. Good night, Dean.
Good night, Dino.
Thanks for coming. Anyway, like I was saying, I think the best thing for Pam to do right now for us is to document, because like I said, it's hard for me to document while I'm doing all this stuff. It's hard to, even if I did set up a tripod, the amount of footage that you get and the tripod sitting in the sun and the editing process after that, it's really tough, as some of you know.
Have time to edit. So
and of course that's extra time and everything. So
I'm putting it all together, and then he comes and goes over it with a fine tooth comb.
And like I said, it can be a little boring. So I'm hoping that with Pam, if you saw today's video, you got to see a little bit of it. It was a little bit of half and half of Pam, and then I had to do some explaining again because I said Pam kind of came back inside and I did the rest of the stuff, but I did it kind of at my own pace, but she didn't get a chance to kind of film it in real time.
Think about 8-foot walls.
So today's video had a little bit of both, where But I think the videos where Pam videotapes me and we interact, I think they're a lot more interesting. So hopefully viewers agree. But we're doing that largely for you guys to make it more interesting to watch, because I know it can get a little dry when I just kind of become a teacher. So hopefully that helps.
Oh, you're not boring. Don't worry.
It's all, go at your own pace.
What's Tom say there?
Think about the 8-foot hay walls will compact more than 6 inches above door and window headers, maybe. Well, so above the doors. So the way we're doing this, and this will be a situation that I still have to figure out how to handle. But right now, our bales we're really only doing bales between the window and door bucks. So the doors, even above and below the windows, let's say, I actually am not 100% sure how we're even going to fill those just yet. So talking about compression there, I haven't really thought that through. We've talked about potentially using spray foam in some of those areas. I don't know if that's realistic or not. It's a possibility, but that's something I'm going to think about a little later on. But for the moment, when it comes to compression of bales, that's really only happening between the window and door bucks. It's not really an issue. It's not happening.
Thank you, Tom.
Above and below windows and doors yet. So, but interesting question, Tom.
Thank you. Maybe we can do cob in those areas, or slip or something.
We'll see when we get kind of past the bale portion of this. Obviously, okay. So
we talked about siding on that.
Yeah, well, that's as sort of a finish
with foam.
That doesn't really answer what's behind it necessarily, but yeah. So there are still some things to figure out, of course. So right now, I got an idea. Why don't you use the bag? So I tiny shiny home use and fill them with straw.
Oh, wait, is this deja vu?
We'll see.
That was my original. I mean, like, that's what originally got. I said, I thought about the floor that Tiny Shiny Home did, and the hyper adobe and filling it on the floor.
Yeah.
And I thought, why couldn't he put that on?
And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of things that we could do and would work. It's just you try and use what you have, and sometimes you try to keep costs down. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you just have to bite the bullet, but you look for what solutions you can find, and then you kind of weigh them, and and
there's a million different ways to do everything.
Those aircrete rebar houses are interesting, but they're more expensive than I thought they'd be. Yeah, maybe a little. Yeah, I mean, I think one of the benefits of the kinds of things we're doing and the things Jim and Jessica are doing is that you can kind of save a ton of money labor-wise if you've got the time and you're willing to do it.
And you're able to do it.
And you're able to do it. But when it comes to, aircrete is definitely an interesting type of build, but and I'm sure there are still things you can, if you try and do some of that yourself, I'm sure you can cut some of those costs, but there's a point where that material is just going to start to cost money. And, I mean, it all depends on everybody's situation. Not that there's anything wrong with aircrete, but I think you'd probably spend a little more than we're spending, I imagine. It's all neat. It really is. In those areas above the doors and windows, we cover the outside and inside with chicken wire and fill it with straw. Absolutely. That is one possibility.
That's a good idea too.
You basically build a basket, right? That is definitely a possibility.
Concrete itself has a 20-year
only has a 20-year lifespan. I've seen a lot of broken concrete. I'm not a fan of concrete. It
seems to crack a lot.
If I had the idea of using the bags, it would have been a lot faster and easier. Yeah, just give the straw a form, basically. That's a good idea. Like I said, I've pushed some of these, and that's my growth process. I hope I'm doing it well. It scares me to say I haven't thought about this stuff yet, or I haven't thought about it a lot, or I don't have a solution. But there are some things that I have to push off because I won't move if I don't push those. So that's one that we're kind of kicking down the road a little bit, and we'll have to resolve what we're going to do there.
I would like to get some of those bags anyway, just because we might want to use them in the floor like they did. That was cool.
Sure, maybe. I give you permission to use that. Thanks, Bill. Yeah, that's a definite possibility. We have talked, about putting a different, at least in terms of finish. And I really like this idea, regardless of how we kind of fill those areas. Let's say above and below windows, let's say, or above doors. regardless of how we fill those with for just the space and for the installative properties of those sections, we both like the idea of putting a different finish in those areas, you know. And if you think about it, it'll be a situation on the outside and the inside. You can, if you choose, that would be a nice place to break up, you know. Say inside you're going along and on top of the bales you're just doing plaster, 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 and you get to a window buck, let's say. So you've got a section below the window and above the window, regardless of what's filling that area. That gives you a chance. You could plaster right across there, but you also could come up with some new kind of finish. You could put a little bit of wood there for aesthetic value. You could put some sort of metal there. I mean, you can do different things just to
I
kind
want
of
to
give
put
yourself a
some
different
metal.
look. I like the idea of metal, especially inside. I don't know if I would do it on the outside
Right.
because of the sun, but on the inside, I think it'd be a neat look. Maybe a patinaed metal.
Yeah, I like it.
It could be really neat. So I
There's
like the
all kinds
idea
of
of
things.
putting different finishes in those areas, basically in the window and door buck areas.
That's when I'm gonna get to go crazy.
So we'll see. But yeah, that's a decision that we've kind of kicked down the road a little bit, just because I can't. I don't have the room in my head
He
for it
can't.
right now.
He
So
can't talk about it. I've tried, believe me. He thinks about it a little. We talk about it a little
so
bit.
we've gone for a while here. I know I've rambled, but I think that was all good stuff. I was really excited about it to get to that solution that I think I really like. I've used it once, like I said. It's tough to get it just right with the height and everything, but I mean, you have a little bit of play, and I can kind of shave a little bit off, you know, with that little rasp thing that I have if I want to play with those heights a little bit. But I think I'm pretty happy with the solution.
We have not really done a lot of
Canning.
or that would be my department because he won't.
It
he
would be.
wouldn't be doing anything like that. But pressure canning. But I will when I get a real kitchen, maybe.
Yeah, it's, you know, we haven't done really any of the
Yes,
really
I would love
much
to do some canning.
of the gardening that we might eventually like to do. Not that we're going to be like giant gardeners. I don't think we are, but we'll do some in the future. But it just hasn't, without a space defined. You know, it took us a while to define our space here and how we were going to lay things out, and it really, things didn't start to take shape on our land, I don't think, until we actually put the carport in place.
Yeah.
That's when things really became kind of solid. So for a long time, we didn't know where to put a garden, and you don't want to just put it somewhere and put a lot of effort into it, and maybe then it ends up being in a spot that's maybe not all that convenient, based on everything else. So we kind of held off on a lot of that stuff. So canning is a similar thing. We just haven't really gotten around to it yet.
Yeah, I have some. I have like the big pot and everything, but it's too big to fit in here, so it's in the storage.
The All-American
facility.
941. Is that a big freezer or something? I know a lot of people have kind of deep freezers, even in regular houses, just to keep extra stuff. And
I thought he meant freezer.
well,
Yeah,
he
freezer.
said, yeah, keeping large quantities of meat.
Oh yeah, we don't really store meat
Or-
because we don't eat a lot of meat.
No,
so
we don't.
we don't. I don't buy meat.
Oh, it's just a big pressure canner. So you can keep meat
In cans.
without
You
freezing it.
can meat. Yeah.
I was not aware of that,
Oh,
actually.
Haven't you ever seen potted meat?
Oh, right.
That thing.
So Bill's aware of that one. I'm not surprised. Bill knows about stuff like that.
My mom.
I
used to
was
do a
not
lot of
aware of.
canning.
I was not aware you could even do that. Really, I thought
Um,
when you wanted to store a bunch of meat, you just had a big, like, special freezer, which a lot of people have, even in normal houses, right? So they can go shop at Costco or Sam's Club or whatever, right, and just keep a bunch of stuff. Spam. Good point.
Believe
Yes.
me, I've
Yeah,
heard
yeah.
of spam.
Yeah. I
We
didn't
used
really
to
think
eat a
about
lot
it, but yeah.
of fried spam when I was a
Makes sense.
youngster. Yeah. What about like tuna fish and canned chicken?
Yeah, good point. I didn't really think about it, I guess even though I know that there are meats like spam or potted meat that get stored that way.
Potted meat.
I mean, I don't think of
So
storing
detract-
a steak or whatever that, you know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
just didn't really know that
Canned
meat
steak.
in general could just be treated that way. I don't think about it.
Yeah, you don't.
But we don't eat much meat, actually. Very little, if any, at the house. Maybe when we travel a little bit, we do eat some.
Would you ever think of putting together a off-grid simple eating cookbook and sell it?
Could be the first sale right there.
Oh,
That would be cool. You know,
it was-
it doesn't even.
I would
that's-
love to, but
That's a really good idea, Lisa. You know, I had never really, I'll be honest, I hadn't really thought about that for you, but because I don't think that you're doing all that much that's really special. Well, you know what I mean? I don't think the things you cook are specific to. I mean, some of them are specific to being off grid, but you could kind of tailor that's a great idea,
I don't
Pam.
know.
It is. You could tailor sort of a cookbook, not even necessarily. If it might not even be to the meals themselves or the recipes themselves, even though you do have good meals and recipes. But you could tailor it to maybe these are things you can make in a really small kitchen, or
Oh, that's true.
or they're just simple or stuff. That's actually a really good idea. I hadn't thought about you doing, because so many people do it, and there's so many flavors of vegan this or off grid that or whatever.
It would be more like
But
RV.
if you approached it from the
recipes.
this is what I can make on a daily basis on 2 feet of counter space or whatever, that's actually a really good idea, to tell you the truth. And she does make a lot of simple meals. Now,
Very
I tend to
simple.
eat the same thing over and over again. So, after
It's
about 2 or 3
more,
meals, you would fill out my whole diet plan.
well, tonight we had it was vegan chicken with rice, and it was like an orange chicken. So Aircrete, I missed that one. You want to go back?
Thanks, Jared.
What did Jared say? I
Jared's saying he could make some comments,
comments,
but he's holding back.
But
Simply Pam, the book. Good idea, Bill. And
uh,
Yvonne. So yeah, I'm sorry. Aircrete has many. Is this what you're talking about?
Aircrete.
So
yeah.
Aircrete house build. Yeah, I knew there was somebody out there that was. So Aircrete has many advantages and should be pretty affordable. We have some different ideas. We'll see how it goes. Like I said, I mean, you can tailor everything a little bit. You can put a bunch of work in yourself. So I don't know. I actually think when we were talking about Aircrete, my mind went more to what did Derek and Hannah do? Yeah, ICF. I'm sorry. So my mind went there, but
Aircrete is like block.
But yeah.
Is it more of the blocks? Well, I think she had said that they had made a batch that didn't work out or something.
Well, I mean, but if you figure out how to make your own, and I mean, this stuff is all super neat if you're willing and able to put in the time and the effort. That's what I like about this natural building stuff. It doesn't have to, it's not about, hey, everybody should do this one or that one, or this one's better than that one, or they're all super neat. And I like anybody doing any of them. And the benefit, I think, to people like us is if you're willing and able to kind of put the time into it and figure some of it out yourself and come up with your own solutions, you can save a ton of money in any of these building methods by basically just not paying someone else to do it, right? So
yeah.
Any of these methods, even if there is a little bit of cost involved, usually the majority of that cost is in the labor and the skill of the other people that you're usually paying to do it. And if you can find a way to do this stuff yourself,
yeah, that's
you can do a lot of these things pretty darn cheap.
Back to the food.
Yeah.
A lot of what I cook is like very simple, and usually trying to just use what I have in the refrigerator, so you don't end up with a lot of junk left over and stuff, because we don't have a lot of space in our refrigerator.
So Aircrete House Build said they're a lot different than what we usually eat. I didn't know that. I mean, that's what we eat. The stuff she makes is what we eat day in, day out. I'm
vegetables,
rice and beans,
no meat.
90%
plant-based.
And
thank you.
You said something there about the fridge. I've said this to a lot of people, just kind of talking. I don't know if I've ever really said it in a video or not, or even in a live, but I know there's a handful of people out there that live in an RV like us. And it can have its challenges, of course, right? And don't get me wrong, I'm looking forward to a little more space and a bigger fridge. But I love the small fridge for the sake that, when we moved out of our house after 17 years we had been there or whatever, when we left, and one of the things you do is you go through that fridge, right? There was stuff in that fridge that, stuff that ends up in the little side deal or whatever, the condiments and whatnot. There's stuff in there that is so many years old that you've
like
never
jelly that had been down
stuff.
there. And I always think I'm going to eat jelly.
That bothers me. It's like, why do we have that, right? So what I love about our fridge, and I don't know if everybody else feels this way, but just about, with very few exceptions, just about everything in our fridge will be gone in 2 weeks. And we'll replace it. I love that.
Well, you have to.
Yeah, I love that stuff doesn't just sit there unused, for years at a time.
Right,
I think that's awesome.
Empty.
So,
it's pretty much empty, and
And
we're
when we
running out of
do, on the
stuff.
rare occasion that stuff does sit there, yes,
Oh
definitely, Bill.
yeah, they
I'm
are
with you there.
energy hogs.
Along those same lines, when she said she makes some meals to kind of clean out the fridge, on the rare occasion that something does sit around for a while, we'll both notice it and be like, hey, we haven't used that thing. It's been in there for a long time. And she'll try and come up with something to incorporate it or whatever. So
Yeah, that's how.
yes, they are horribly inefficient. Ours doesn't even seem to really cycle very often, right? A normal fridge should kind of use some energy and then kind of shut off and just kind of sit for a while, and then use a little energy and then shut off for a while. Ours just kind of burn. I don't know about you, Bill and Yvonne, but ours just is a steady. It's a big draw on our solar, so it's really hard to run our fridge 24/7 for various parts of the year because of that. It just never stops. So yeah, that's unfortunate.
Trina says they still have 4 in the RV.
Four people?
So Trina, where are you in Arizona? I was looking at your Facebook today, but I can't remember.
They have their house fridge out on a pallet by the door. That's kind of like, Jim and Jessica have gone to the outside fridge, I think, right? Yeah.
I wish we could do that, but we've been doing it this way. We kind of got used to it.
I'll tell you what, I say a lot of times that living in the RV isn't all that bad. It would be tough to do. It would be tough to do with more than 2. I don't know that I'd like it with more than just me and Pam in it. I can tell you that.
I like that galons. I can't keep up now.
I don't love my 9 cubic foot galons from Home Depot. We are very likely to end up with that fridge or something very similar to it in our house. I think it'll still be a small fridge. I think that thing's awesome, Dawn.
I'm from Texas.
6-year-old jelly packet on the bottom shelf in the corner, says Lisa.
Yeah, I had.
Ben says I've got some Worcestershire sauces. About 12 years old. Yeah, everybody's been there.
We found all.
So yeah, Dawn's is super efficient. So I look forward to that. That's one of the things that'll, even though it'll get bigger when we move to the house, it'll use less energy when we move to the house. There's a few things that even though they'll be better or bigger, they'll actually be less of a draw than they are in here. So I'm looking forward to that. Trina's in Texas?
What part of Texas? I thought maybe around the Dallas area.
Aircrete House Bill says our refrigerator broke 2 months ago. Our new one is probably sitting in a shipping container. We're using a tiny one for now.
Are you feeling better? Affordable dip.
When my wife finds old stuff in the fridge, this is Rob. She always asks if I want to keep the science experiments. Yeah, it feels that way, right? Yeah. Dawn's fridge, love it.
Your mom still has your college refrigerator?
Do you seriously?
Does it work?
If I'm thinking of the right fridge, wow. So I think we had a little fridge in our house.
Austin,
it's not like the tiny little desk like you would take to work type fridge.
Yeah.
Whoa,
what was that? Whoa.
No.
I don't.
If I'm thinking of the right fridge, it's maybe 3 feet tall or so. And we had, not only did I use it at college, we had it for years before I went to college, if I'm thinking of the right one. So I took it to college, got done, brought it back, and that was 20 years ago,
Can
guys.
You send it?
Oh, it's really small. It's really small, but
I'm just kidding.
That fridge is almost as old as me. That's crazy.
Between Austin and San Antonio. I lived all over the place in Texas in very tiny towns. Thanks, Bill. Did Bill say, is that how I got to get going? Oh.
Okay, guys. I got to get going. Night, Bill and Yvonne.
It still
out.
Works. Wow.
Anyway, yeah, so we're about to wrap up. It's almost 7 anyway, but if anybody's got it, that was good discussion, guys. Hope everybody had a good time.
Why did I know Dawn is sick?
I didn't know Dawn wasn't feeling well either.
I didn't know you weren't feeling well, Dawn.
They don't make things like they used to. Yeah, that was a heck of a fridge.
That is true. Every time I go to the store, they're making things smaller and worse quality, and
they make
raise
them
the price.
Smaller, worse, and more expensive. It seems like is what we're getting nowadays. Dawn, it's not. I didn't know you didn't feel well. Well, hope you feel better, Dawn.
I hope you feel better now.
We haven't seen Dawn in a little while.
Yeah, we haven't forgotten Bill. Dawn. It's just that we've been kind of
change of weather. I used to, one of the things I like about Arizona is, at least the weather didn't used to change very drastically. Now we do get some drastic changes. I used to get sick a lot in Pennsylvania when the weather would, real warm, real cold, real warm, real cold. That kind of stuff throws me off, and I would get sick from that a lot. So,
But you're welcome to come over anytime,
sure.
Don,
And we'll come visit again.
if you get lonely or something.
Thanks for stopping by, Lisa.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for everybody who stopped in.
I think we're going to wrap it up here. We're getting
I hope
right
you
at
had some
an
fun. Again, I know we were off for a little bit from both regular videos and our lives. Hopefully now that we're back at work and we've got some things to talk about, I think we'll be doing these again weekly and putting out some more videos. So hang in there. Hopefully you enjoy them. And I guess that ought to do it. Thanks, everybody. Anything else?
No.
All right.
Thanks.
Have a nice night,
y'all.
everybody.
We'll see y'all
We'll talk to you again next time.
later.
Good night.
Bye. I saw a bug fly.